Hello, welcome, Cabbage here. In Nier Reincarnation, let's continue my reaction to the Amber chapter of People World. In the Part 1 video, which I linked to below, we mostly talked about Leon and Udil. Here, let's talk about the revelation of the true nature of Mama and the cage, which is the reason why we're all here. It's the reason why the game exists. I previously spoke about plot as a part of narrative. The plot of Nier Reincarnation, the game, hadn't actually started until People World. We got stuff like the setting and the characters, but no movement from point A to point B in terms of Mama and the cage. The catalyst was the attack on the cage, and here we are now. Towards the end of Leon and Udil's travels in the cage, Mama informs them of the cage's system, which is, it is a place to house sinners in particular, and in Sun Moon we got some hints about that as Hina and Yuzuki traveled the cage. But as we now know, it's more than just the memories of sinners, it holds their actual consciousness and will. And the reason why it is more than a simple storage space or prison is because the cage also serves as sort of a crucible where those sinners can work to confront and resolve their sins, find atonement, and their reward for doing so is release from the cage. I really should do a video on Buddhism because I feel like it relates to both reincarnation and automata. But this could be like exiting the cycle of reincarnation and finding nirvana, which I spoke about in a recent Akeha video. We should find out more in the next chapter because with the attack on and the apparent destruction of the cage, Mama has taken those 20 characters into herself and is seeking to transport them presumably to the world, Earth, as was hinted in the preview trailer. The identity of the attacker turned out to be the subjugation's moose all along. Perhaps that is the reason why we never got a fish or man of war boss. But the true form was this thing which apparently means something to Drakengard fans. You can teach me about that in the comments, what this is and what it means. I do know one thing about Drakengard, and that is that the last boss was a music battle versus a giant gray woman. On Japanese Twitter leading up to this chapter, I saw some folks joking that there would be a music battle versus a giant gray Argo. They were half right. So, Mama takes in the characters into herself and it cuts to Pod 006 on the moon base, who opens the airlock and sees 10H of Yorha out there. Holy crap. I still remember the first time someone let me know of this theory. It was sometime in the first year of Global, that the cage was the moon base storing humanity's records from the Automata storyline, and I was blown away at that time too. What blew me away was that reincarnation might be serving as the resolution, I'm using that word a lot, to the Automata story that came out 6 years ago. The commitment to a story for that long, and longer if we count Replicant and Drakengard, is impressive. And then later, I was alerted to the 10H story. I read it, and I was blown away again. This was when the People World trailer came out, and we saw the silhouette. The 10H story was never released officially in English. I'll link to the wiki translation below, but real quick summary here. 10H is a Yorha maintenance android who is charged with what she believes is a deep-sea backup server of what's on the moon base. Working with her is a red pod 006. One day, 10H's curiosity gets the best of her and, fighting through a whole bunch of pods, she opens the airlock and discovers she is actually on the moon. She is taken down by more pods and her memory is erased so that she can continue maintaining the moon base, but the cycle continues. 10H gets suspicious, she opens the airlock, she gets her memory erased. I hear some criticism that this reveal was too obvious, too neat, but I'm not a fan of surprise for a surprise's sake, subverting expectations just cause. Again, I like a well-constructed, well-told story, and the cage being the moon base makes sense, and serves and continues what is essentially the prequel in Nier Automata. I hated what The Last Jedi did to Star Wars, and I'm glad we didn't get that here. But, and I never noticed this before, but on the promotional art for the chapter, if we look closely at the shadow of Mama, it does look like a pod. We also got a hint about this in the preview trailer, where we see Mama, and then it kind of flickers in and out to show a pod. And then apparently there's also another main screen where it shows 10H and 006. I haven't been able to get it on my phone, but somebody else put up a picture of that. Pretty crazy. And from what I can gather, the pods that have the lower numbers are closer to human. And so that's why in Nier Automata, Pod 042 had a bit more kind of curiosity or like a sense of will or independence more than Pod 153. So 006 would have to be very close to human, and that kind of shows in the short story where she appears with 10H. As for if 10H is going to be a playable character, maybe I'll talk about that in the next video. But here, I wanted to step back a moment from these revelations and just marvel at what Nier Reincarnation is. I said it before, but it is a gift, especially to the global audience. They could have easily released it as Japan only, and I think even we, the global audience, would have understood and trudged along with fan translations, like with the 10H story or the Yorha stage plays. But Square Enix and Applebot went the extra mile in bringing their game fully to global and on the same schedule to boot. I can't stress enough what a service they have done for us. It's pretty humbling, and I'm very grateful. If it were Japan only, I probably wouldn't have picked it up, and even if I had, the stories all in Japanese might have turned me off, probably would have turned me off, and I probably wouldn't have picked up Automata, and I probably wouldn't have picked up a Switch, I wouldn't have picked up Replicant, I wouldn't have picked up a PlayStation, and I wouldn't have picked up Sino Alice. And it put off my retirement from mobile games these 3 years, for better or for worse. But during these videos, I have dived deeper into the Japanese mobile game industry. I've rekindled my interest in philosophy, I practiced explaining fashion and clothing, and I even did a bit of translation, which I don't have a lot of chances to do, so I owe Reincarnation a lot. But yeah, from the early days of JP, before Global was even released, I could tell this was not a game looking to turn a profit, that it was a game whose life would be dictated by the story it wanted to tell, not sales. And so, when I saw people from Global talking about saving the game and, hey, let's incentivize global users, I rolled my eyes because I knew it was wasted breath. They were treating Nier Reincarnation like the average mobile game when it was anything but. It's been sad watching the game this year because it has been trying to be the average mobile game to make a little money, and failing while hurting various aspects of the user experience. But thankfully, the story is still better than anything I've seen on mobile, better than a lot of console games that I've played, and that's the reason I am here. In part 3 of my reaction to Amber of People World, I want to think about where the game can go from here, but to end this video, I wanted to do a thought experiment which I brought up some time ago. I put a theory out there that the entire Sun and Moon story act was like bonus content that was perhaps on the chopping block, pre-launch, and that it was only put into the game or created for the game because of the very successful first 6 months of the game. Revenue is life for mobile games, so with the over 10 million USD the game pulled in the first half year, the publisher and developer maybe were like, oh, we have a ton of leeway here. We can tell the story we originally wanted to tell and still have enough left over to cover operating costs and development costs for an additional year. And maybe that's why we got Sun Moon. I was waiting to get back to this theory until we got the reveal of the cage and Mama, because I wanted to see if Sun and Moon had never existed, would this reveal be significantly different, and no, it wouldn't. That might change with the next chapter, and I'll talk about that later, but People World could have worked very similarly without Sun Moon characters. Just sub in the kind of floating characters like Noel, Lars, and Gale for Sadio, Udil, and Marie, or have Akeha and 063Y walk alone, and we could still reach the exact same point, where Leon searches for Demas, and Mama brings everyone together to do the music battle versus the giant gray woman, and we get the reveal of 10H on the moon. So as we stand now, the theory holds, but we'll see what happens in the next chapter, and that'll be the topic for the next video. But that was what I was talking about, Nier Reincarnation feeling both fuller and leaner than it could have been. Revenue was good enough in the beginning that we might have gotten an entire bonus story arc, but revenue has been bad enough since then that People World is less than it could have been. Still amazing, don't get me wrong, but feels compressed both in terms of content and the pace of rollout. I did say in the previous video that some characters kind of felt shoehorned into the story, But it's a lot of characters, and like everybody got their time to shine, and then we got a good story overall, so I think it was pretty well done overall, all things considered. Alright, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again. Take care.